Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and all genders in between, as the cabaret line goes. Welcome to another wonderful Wednesday webinar with the Climate Emergency Centre Network, an ever-growing network of about 30 centres around the UK now reusing empty buildings for community and environment projects. Tonight we've got Miranda, great younger activist that I've met at the festivals and things, and she's going to do an introduction workshop into the mining company Glencore and extractivism and some of the things that are going on for indigenous people and groups all over the world and how mining is affecting their land. It's a big issue that we don't hear enough about in the West, and there are, full on horrific, terrible things going on all around the world, and we need to shine a light on it. So, thank you to Miranda and all of the Stop Glencore crew and all the others campaigning wherever they are. Solidarity. Over to you, Miranda. Thank you so much for coming. Over.
Thank you, Phoenix. Just firstly, can you see the slides? Can you see the photo? Okay. Um, I can't really see anyone else. So if you have a question at any point, like we can do questions and talk a bit after, but also if there's something you want to say, just please unmute and go for it. Or if someone says something in the chat and I don't see it because because I'm sharing, I can't see everyone. Yeah, please feel free to butt in at any point. So yeah, welcome. My name's Miranda and I'm part of Resist Glencore UK. So we are part of a global network of activists and workers, farmers, peasant communities in both the global south and the global north, working to try to basically highlight the atrocities that this mining company is responsible for, and to amplify the voices of the communities who are on the front line of their extractivism. Of their mining, basically. Today is kind of just going to be like an introduction into firstly, like who is Glencore, and then into ways we can resist and things we've done in the UK, and also things that people around the world have been doing for a long time to resist Glencore ultimately. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go to. Will I go to the next one? Yeah, okay. So who is Glencore? So Glencore is actually one of the biggest trading and mining companies in the world. But most of us in like the climate sphere don't really know who they are. So, 2-3 years ago, I'd never heard of Glencore, but actually, arguably, they cause as much ecological damage and destruction as Shell, BP, Total, if not actually more. They really have like a monopoly globally on coal mining. They also drill for oil and natural gas, but they're kind of growing, like expanding biggest thing is mining for metals and minerals like copper, cobalt, lithium, nickel, gold, and silver. Um, that's really where their big money is, as coal is slowly kind of going down globally, because everyone knows how bad it is, but also because the demand for these metals is increasing. So Glencore is we call it like an Anglo-Swiss company, basically just meaning they're both English and Swiss. So they have a head office in London, just off Oxford Street, and they also have a head office in Switzerland. So it kind of really brings it close to home. Like for us, it's happening. They're making decisions just up the road, basically, for quite a few of us. And they're financed by British banks like Barclays, HSBC, and they've got investors like BlackRock, and basically companies that are all based in Europe, committing like atrocities all across the world. So I'll just show you. This is a map from Glencore's website. So this is a map of their mines. So you can see like in some places, like where it says there in Southern Africa, like Botswana, there's over 19 mines in that region. A lot of that is in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which I'll talk about. But ultimately, you can see they're like all over the world in every region. And, they've done some mining in like the top northern part of North America, where you kind of think, surely there's nothing there, but no, they're like drilling for oil and coal, and other metals there. So yeah, this kind of like gives you an overview of just how global this company is. Um, and because they mine for so many different things, they like it's not just like BP, although BP do go across the world, but like they need specific oil sites. Glencore is everywhere, mining for different things. So yeah, that's kind of like a very like brief introduction. They were set up like they've kind of been going since like the 1970s, but really like increasing in recent decades because of the mining of these metals that like are increasingly used for our laptops and our phones. Anything that you can charge needs copper and cobalt and lithium. And also obviously like the rise of electric cars, wind turbines, solar panels, like they do need these metals. These metals can be recycled, but you know that's not the economy we live in. So yeah, that's like a brief overview. They are extremely profitable, but a big reason you may never have heard of them really is because they don't sell any of their products to people like us. So BP, Shell, we have to buy their like petrol, or maybe you get your energy in your house from them. Like we kind of have to know them, and they kind of have to do like a greenwashing campaign where we pretend like they pretend they care because we actually buy from them. Like we have power to some extent as a customer. Glencore, like they're selling to they're selling to people like Apple, Tesla, Dell, and also to arms companies, or they're selling coal to countries such as Israel. So their customers are very different. They're corporate and then countries, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's just a very different kind of corporation. Yeah.
It's amazing that picture how global they are all over, and you said something about coals going down there. One of the, there's been a lot of campaigning on coal and it has now decreased. There's still a lot of it, like you're saying. And the other one, just seeing them mining in Moscow, it's mad how they say there's wars going on, Ukraine, Russia, but they're still exporting Russian oil and yet they're still, British companies are still financing and doing mining in certain countries like, Russia and stuff. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll get on in a minute onto like yeah, the links with Israel and how despite like everything we've all witnessed and that's like been declared globally, yeah, those ties still go on. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Colombia because Glencore has been operating there for like significantly for the last 2 decades. And also we set up Resist Glencore in the UK with connections to activists and communities on the front line in Colombia. So this has kind of been our focus for a while. So this mine you can see in the top right hand corner, it's called El Cerrejón. I can like type that later. So this is in like northern Colombia, kind of close to Venezuela. This is yeah like an open pit, open cast coal mine. It's absolutely huge. It's 6 times the size of the city of Paris, just to give you some context. And this has been like mined and created on indigenous people's land. So this territory used to like kind of be owned, not owned, but like two indigenous communities used to live there, the Yukpa and the Wayu, and this is obviously like you can no longer live here. Um,
Miranda, can you just run that fact again about how big the size of that was compared to Paris?
yeah, so it's 6 times the size of Paris.
Wow, that
For
is unbelievable.
yeah, which is like I don't know if anyone's ever been there. Like, you could walk around Paris for days and not even see what like a quarter, like so that really gives context. And I've seen like drone footage that goes on for 20 minutes just going over at probably, like yeah, quite a good pace, and it's still not you're not seeing the whole thing. So that's just like context of the level that we're talking about. And obviously you can imagine the amount of money that is coming from that amount of coal. Um, there is some really significant resistance by communities. Like here we have Esneda, who's one of the female community leaders of the Yukpa people. she's been really vocal in resisting and organizing to try to ultimately get the mine closed or to have some reparations for their land being taken, which is not easy. And I guess it's important to talk about, like, in Europe, our activism is we are facing increasingly more like police oppression and surveillance. However, as Nada, who's pictured here, has had people with guns come to her home and, yeah, tried to attack her, and her children were there, her grandchildren were there. So, just for some context of trying to resist in Latin America is very different. And yeah, here is a photo of a river. I think this is in YU territory that has ultimately completely dried up. So that's people's drinking water and also where you can get food from. And just for like animals and wildlife, that's been completely, yeah, gone. Um, that's because the mining process uses a huge amount of water, and also, I'm sure, yeah, can be linked to the climate crisis.
That's
I,
a
yeah,
point, Miranda, about how heavy it is for activists in South America, the global South, other
mhm,
places. That we would have got shot in South American countries for some of the
yeah,
activism we've done over here, and we need to create better buddy systems and ways of
yeah.
working together so that we can shine a light if there is things, earth defenders, forest defenders, being threatened in those countries. We want to keep working on these links
Mhm,
over. But thanks for
mhm.
highlighting it.
I'm going to talk about now the Democratic Republic of Congo, which like people refer to that as the DRC. It's just a bit quicker. I appreciate this is like quite heavy and quite a lot of information, but I hope it's like informative and that it can lead you, like we can have maybe a discussion or like lead you to your own research. And yeah, it's just good to know about things that are happening led by our own like corporations in this country. So yes, this is another mine, but this one is for cobalt, and also like copper and lithium. There's a lot, like the Congo is a like a just such a beautiful country and such a diverse, rich landscape. It's got like, well, it did have and still does have like an incredible rainforest, and just incredible like river ecosystems which have deposited so many different things. So you can also, there's like diamond here, coal, gold and silver. It's just like an incredible landscape in terms of like what the earth has created there. However, unfortunately, in the context of like 400, 500 years of colonialism under Belgium and under the UK, the Congolese people don't have the rights to their own land, and it's so much has been taken already, that it's a very fragile and like unstable and very violent place for people to be. And this is like, the accountability should be on Europe, for what like the legacy that they've left. And so, yeah, we have mining companies such as Glencore coming in, owning mines such as the Matanda mine and also in the Katanga region, they own mines there. So these are just parts of the Congo. And it's just like, I mean, it's devastating what's happening there, like mass cycles of poverty, meaning people don't really have a choice but to work in the mines, because it's such a huge economy. People being paid like $1 to $2 a day for producing over 40 kilograms of cobalt, much of which has to be dug by hand. And because it's such an informal economy, like a lot of it is children or young people or and also adults. And yeah, like I guess in this context, why this is really important is Glencore own many of these mines and they then sell these materials onto companies like Apple, Dell, Microsoft, Tesla, Google. I'm sitting here on like a Google laptop right now. I have an iPhone. Things that I use every single day come from these mines, and like these companies are responsible. So it's just again really good to know like the supply chain. Unfortunately, companies like Glencore make it really informal so that the people who are mining will sell it to like a Congolese person who will drive the produce every day, like on a moped, to another Congolese person who would drive it to a port, who will then sell it to like a Chinese company, who will then sell it to Glencore, who will then sell it. Like it's just like the supply chain is honestly ridiculous, because it means Glencore's never buying the initial product, and so therefore, even though they own the mine, then like there's all these people in between, and it ultimately means, people have tried to sue Glencore. Families, parents of children who have unfortunately lost their lives have tried to sue Glencore, and they are able to stand back. And especially companies like Apple who buy it can just be like, "Oh, we never knew," and unfortunately, that is actually quite effective. Like this is trying to change, and I talk about the resistance and campaigns that are kind of happening. But yeah, it's just good to know so we can learn more ourselves and amplify these voices. But yeah, just this map in the top, like kind of gives you, this is quite zoomed out on Google, just gives you a bit of a scale of just how huge these mines are. So yeah, quickly before I kind of talk more about resistance and what we can do, there's just like ongoing links with Glencore and Israel and the conflict that they're committing in Palestine and in Gaza. So Glencore has kind of for a long time had links with Israel. One of its, at a point, a CEO was an Israeli billionaire, and there were just, there were lots of links going on there, and lots of money like going back and forth, and lots of corruption, and lots of corruption linked to the US as well with that CEO. But the most pressing issue at the moment is that coal mined in Glencore owned mine, so that makes sense, is being sent to Israel. So specifically from Colombia and from South Africa. The president of Colombia, Pedro, has like released did an incredible thing by basically saying that no coal can leave Colombia and go to Israel. So that's amazing. That's something that, for example, our government could do. They could say we're selling no arms to Israel. We're sending no products to Israel. They could do that. Obviously, they're choosing not to, but the Colombian government chose to, and they stopped all coal going to Israel. So the last ships went out in like this time last year from Colombia. So that's a massive, massive win, and that's still standing. However, the South African government haven't done the same, so there's still coal going from South Africa. Israel is actually like a very small place, so they really need energy to be sent to them. Like they can generate their own, but they do also need imports, especially because of their like the size of their military. It's like really costly to be fueling that size of a military, and if you just think of the scenes we've witnessed over the last 2 years, the level of bombs and tanks and surveillance, everything that requires a lot of energy to fuel that. So yeah, that they need things like coal, basically, hugely. So that's just a kind of whistle stop tour on who Glencore are and where they operate. There's unfortunately lots more I could talk about, as we saw on that map. And I guess why?
Miranda,
Yep.
let's jump in there. What info have you got on, like, there's actually a whole big Gaza gas field just off in the sea, and part of this conflict is also about the gas. Do you know much about that? If not, not worry, carry on.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi just cut a bit, but I think you said about the conflict being linked to the gas in Gaza.
Yeah, there's a massive gas field just over, and just like we had wars for Iraq for oil, there's something about there's a massive gas field, and part of it is about,
Yeah, so this that is basically linked to BP, and it was like 18 months ago or so, BP I think did some kind of like exploration for oil off the coast of Gaza. This was linked to Rishi Sunak and his father-in-law. And they basically found that yes, there is significant amounts of fossil fuels. I think it was gas and oil. Um, Energy Embargo for Palestine did some really incredible research on this. um, but why it was linked to Rishi Sunak is his father-in-law's company, like a link to oil, and there was like a document that was released saying like they were going to be able to basically have access to that oil once, like quote unquote, things died down in the Middle East, which is just like, yeah, horrendous to hear that. And I think, yeah, he was like still prime minister or like in parliament at the time. So yeah, that isn't necessarily linked to Glencore, but that doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, it's yeah linked to BP. Um,
Extractivism, I think, is
yeah,
a broader
and
term. Yeah.
BP will most likely have access to that. And it's way easier for BP to have access to that when Israel, if and when Israel have Gaza, basically, because it's no longer Palestine. It could be no longer Palestinian land. So we have to see what happens, and we have to. Yeah, thank you for raising that because it's really important to know these things. And like, unfortunately, extractivism and fossil fuels are behind, as you said, so many conflicts. It's never just about like culture, basically, as they try to make it seem. There's always
The,
something for someone else to gain.
the news behind the news that you don't always hear about these large corporations, there was a report basically, I think it was BP and Exxon that produced saying unless we go in and invade Iraq and take over the oil reserves, then we'll lose our kind of, our majority world control of the energy resources, and therefore we have to go and attack Iraq. And
Yep.
the whole 2 years later, we manufactured some things and attacked and took over the Iraqi oil fields, again.
Yep.
Carry on though. It's all seeing the bigger picture of these extractivist
Yep.
companies really doing over indigenous people's lands all over the country. It's happening here. Shell to Sea in Ireland. I was campaign many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Back over to you, Miranda. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and no, that's just like a really good point to raise is that ultimately most fossil fuels and metals and minerals are in the global south. And so that's also, these are communities that have been exploited, but also there's a serious power in this land and in those people to resist, and hopefully in us in Europe to like support that resistance. So yeah, that moves us on to Resisting Glencore, and that's our name. So yeah, who kind of are we? So like yeah, I said we're yeah like a network of people across the world. So I was just in a meeting before this with people from different parts of the world, from different African nations, European nations, Australia, and across Latin America. And it's really incredible to be able to hear people's experiences and their demands, especially communities on the front line. We can't necessarily, well, I can't necessarily relate to living right by a coal mine on my ancestral land, but I can relate to hearing them and like hearing their demands for what we can do in Europe and trying to get that to happen. So yeah, a big part of this is what this banner says is like mining justice, and this can come in lots of different ways. For some people, that's financial reparations from these mining companies. For other people, it's mine closure. For others, it's transforming the land into um, like renewable energy. For others, it's yeah, like suing these companies. There's just so much what this can mean. A big part of it is ultimately land back to the communities who historically had it, and allowing people to, yeah, actually look after land. And then a discussion at the table is the main thing, to think about the future of this land. So yeah, this is just an example of some stuff we've done in the UK. This behind us is the Glencore offices. So it's right next to Bond Street tube station. Um, and yeah, a big part of it really is like spreading information. And so people know, because the more people know, the more people will take action. And, we've seen some really incredible action against BP and Shell and other companies like that, and incredible action against arms factories. And so the kind of hope is that the more we talk about Glencore, the more their reputation is damaged in this country. We can only do what we can. But yeah, we do protests and also workshops like this one, just to kind of get the ball rolling for people. So yeah, a big part of the first year of our campaign was fundraising and getting finance for um, 3 people from the Yukpa community in Colombia to actually come to the UK, and to come to Europe. So Glencore has its big annual general meeting every May in Switzerland. So these people were able to come to that and to speak directly to the shareholders of Glencore. about their experiences. But also they came to London. So this is a photo of Chiche and Esneda outside the offices in London. So this was like, yeah, an extremely powerful event, and an incredible opportunity for all of us involved to like learn more, and kind of like really try to learn more about like international solidarity and climate justice. You know, I think a lot of our activism in the UK has been focused on like phasing out fossil fuels and phasing in renewables without sometimes thinking about the people behind that and like the social justice that is required. So it's really incredible, and moving to meet them and to hear their like, you know, steadfastness of commitment against Glencore. And they, as Nada said, such like a powerful thing of seeing this office for the first time. And you know, it's this huge, grand, glossy, beautiful building. And she said, like, you know, now I know where like the riches of my land are going, and it's going to buildings like this in central London. They kind of serve no purpose, but are so fancy and expensive. And yeah, that really just stuck with me. So yeah, here's just like some examples of the protests that we've done. And yeah, linking it to Israel and Palestine, but also like really kind of our main focus has been about Colombia and other Latin American countries. Growing focus kind of on the Congo and building connections with groups already organizing on that. Um, these
We
are
have James here who might want to speak a little bit afterwards, who's from the DRC, Congo.
okay, amazing. And then these are just some examples of protests that have happened, like just to show you globally. These aren't necessarily technically under the banner of Resist Glencore, but these are communities resisting Glencore. So I thought I'd just show you. So this is in the Northern Territory in Australia, a group of Aboriginal activists, yeah, campaigning against Glencore. So Glencore have huge coal mines in Australia. If any of you have like friends or family who have emigrated to Australia, you have to do like those 80 days or whatever of work. And a lot of people actually work in Glencore's mines because it's really well paid. And it's like quite, you know, it's quite good work. It's not like, obviously, it's not mining by hand. It's so different to other countries. So yeah, a lot of people will go there because they got, yeah, to work for them because it's very well paid and they got huge mines. So yeah, that's just an example in Australia. Um, this is in El Cerrejón, the mine in Colombia I showed at the start. That's, yeah, 6 times the size of Paris. This is the tobacco community. They're also a community affected by Glencore, yeah, who have been doing a lot of resistance. This was a recent action in Bogota, in Colombia, a huge Palestine flag, and yeah, linking like Glencore's coal, and yeah, the connection to Palestine. Pretty cool image. I love this one. This is in Peru. This is workers on strike. So there's some really incredible action taken by trade unionists, kind of much like actually is the history of our country. Coal miners and trade unionists working together against like mine closures and strikes and using their voice under Thatcher. So you know, kind of amazing to see the parallels and just solidarity with these people risking, as was risked here, like, you know, the complete loss of income. But yeah, taking that action. Um, this is in South Africa. So there's, yeah, some big mines there and really amazing protests actually happening there at the moment. And yeah, this is us in the UK, trying to, yeah, just like speak at as many things. And this bottom one is us outside the Swiss embassy, because yeah, a lot of Glencore's like decisions are taken in Switzerland. So this was pretty quick, and I appreciate it's a lot of information, but I hope it was interesting for you. And
Powerful, powerful.
yeah,
Keep going. Yeah.
thank you. Just wanted to share this final, like, if you are interested at all, we're kind of like ever changing and growing and just working at like capacity. It's, you know, it's a very difficult time for like all of us, and so much is going on in the world, and also it's just really difficult to exist at this time and to pay for things. And like, I appreciate capacity is low. So we're just kind of going fluctuating. Yeah. A big part of our campaign is actually researching. So if if you're interested in like reading articles or you have spare time, that's like something we really appreciate, is just learning more about, for example, what is Glencore doing in Russia or in Zambia, like just finding out so that we really have the facts and we can come at them with the right information. We're always trying to do stuff on social media and always trying to do like events, to either workshops or also fundraising. There's always asks from communities on the front line for funding for like transport to protests and also protection. Um, so that's always something that we are doing. So if you enjoy fundraising or bake sales or anything like that, we really appreciate it. As well as writing articles, doing social media posts, researching, organizing protests. There's lots to be involved in, and also, you can just follow us on social media or go on our website and see more within your own time. But yeah, we're basically also always open to like, yeah, what you think about it. So yeah, I hope this was informative and interesting for you. And yeah, just thank you for this space. I'm happy to like just have questions or discussions, but I'm not sure if you then do something next on your call. But yeah.
Okay, Miranda, thank you so much. That was really informative, really visual. Thank you for taking us there. As an activist of 35 years, I've known about various anti-mining campaigns and, and what's going on with coltan and extractivism and, what's going on for electric cars and things. Navajo land being fucked over and, things going on in, Aboriginal land. Actually, the equivalent of Aboriginal Stonehenge, one of the most sacred areas, is currently being done over for a mine. And so many of these groups don't, get the media because it's far away from the
Mhm.
centers of power and the centers of media. We need to create people's media and solidarity and buddy up with individuals and groups and campaigns around the world as part of what we're trying to do on the bigger picture of climate merge centers networks. If Brighton can link with Bogota and Birmingham with
Mhm.
Brazil or whatever, and one individual can link to another individual, and if they are being threatened, they can actually get it out on social media and get it out in the media here. We have a what's the word? A privilege and an energy in this country to be able to do stuff without getting bumped off. So let's use it, folks, to support these groups. Miranda, that was really powerful and you really took us there. So folks, the next bit of the process, really, we're got about 20 minutes on Q&A or so. We can run over 5-10. We do leave it on for 10 minutes after if people want to chat and discuss. There's a react button down the bottom. You can raise a hand like that if you've got a question, a comment, a feedback. 1, 2, 3. We can see who puts their hands up. I know James. He might have come and gone. Is he? Yeah, James is still here. Issues getting in and out. James is actually in the Congo. I don't know whether you want to share anything now or when it flows, James. I'll give you first chance to say something if you want. James, over to you, and then other folks put your hands up. Over. James,
Okay.
thank you for coming all the way from
Yes.
Congo. Over.
Okay. Thank you for this. I'm happy to join this presentation of Miranda. It's very, very happy for. I think it could be something like this Glencore. Many people, many civilians don't know it here on the ground. It's someone, for example, intellectual people, those who went to school, who know what is Glencore and what is doing, but in villages they don't know Glencore. The problem is that the government signed some contract with those big enterprise, big companies without informing the villagers. So when you arrive in villages, you'll see people are suffering and they are picking mining. They are picking mining everywhere. And for example, you can see they say we have a problem of malnutrition around in the villages around where this Glencore is picking mining. Or you can see they have only their their small road when they pick mining, and after arrive somewhere they go. They can't help villages. Example to build the schools. You see, it's because of that we need to resist, because they say Congo is a rich country but with a poor people. So who take mining in this rich country? It's a enterprise like this Glencore. So we personally we need to support such initiative, this resistance, because it's helping us. It will help us to it will help us to see if they can help even if those villagers. The second thing is when Glencore arrive in somewhere, if they are taking gold, for example, if they join some villagers, some people who was start to do some business of picking that mining in that career, they trust them. Those people doesn't have access to the career. Another problem is they use children, for example, in some careers. And ecologically, you can see them when they are using, for example, those material to wash to wash. It can be something which can cause many problems in villages. They can kill fishes. We saw in Katanga some from some careers river have just been destroyed, but there doesn't no one who can we don't know where we can accuse them. In villages, in our villages, we don't know where to accuse them if they make mistakes. So me personally, I can support this resistance. Thank you very much, Miranda.
Thank you very much, Miranda and James, for that testimony. And I think more people in countries all around the world need to actually see the images, see the video, hear the voices of the people in those countries. So anything we can do in solidarity to magnify your projects, your campaigns, your messages, do let us know. And how I think there's a conversation about linking up a climate emergency centre out there, but how can we buddy up, like I say, city to city, centre to centre, activist to activist, so that we can help each other. Thank you very much, James, and do put your links into the chat so we can network them, and let's keep the conversation going. Solidarity. Any others out there who would like a question, a comment, a feedback, or tell us about your anything about what Miranda said, or anything about your campaign or project? I know there was a lady in France mentioned something, or I mean, what are the solutions? So pop your hands up. You can see down the bottom there's a react little heart-shaped thing. You can stick your hand up there or just jump in if you need. Sophie Palmer, I think, had her hand up. Next off.
Yeah,
Mark, did you have one over?
thank you. I mean, I would be interested on the solutions, as you just said, but that's the big question, isn't it? Thank you so much. That was a really powerful presentation. I learned a lot. I've been in the climate space for since leaving uni, but I'm not familiar with Glencore. So I really appreciated that. I'm curious, is like whether Resist Glencore has any traction with like the larger NGOs, like Greenpeace or what have you. So just to give some context, I support a coalition about radically reforming drug policy with an ecological harm reduction in mind, because very similar. It's also intertwined with land rights, hugely affecting main in Latin America, also in the Republic of Congo, and like all across the world. And like we have a responsibility here in the global north, where we're so far away from that violence, to take action. And so we've tried approaching many of the big NGOs, and actually that's really challenging because it's so taboo, nobody wants to touch it. But it's not, we can't leave it to folks in Colombia or folks who are risking their lives. So that's just not that we can't do that. So yeah, I'm just curious if there's been anything with larger NGOs.
Yeah, so we work really closely with 350, which is a climate organization who operate across the world, which is really cool because they have like offices in like every continent basically, and like they really tried to employ like local activists for local issues. So we've been working with them a lot, which is really positive, but also can sometimes be hard, as always with NGOs. Like there's some things they're not allowed to talk about. Like with Palestine, it's taken actually quite a long time to get there, but now we've got there, and they've been sharing our stuff on that. We work like, I mean, XR isn't Extinction Rebellion isn't necessarily an NGO, but we've worked with them in lots of different places. And with something called the Sunrise Project. So that's also an international, like, and I guess NGO, which has been really amazing. They actually really helped us with like research on Canada and Australia. And then in the UK, there's a really, I'll write it in the chat, a really, really good organization called London Mining Network. So this is a campaign group who've been running for ages, who like do research on mining companies that are like on the London Stock Exchange. So they have like incredible research, like reports and papers and so much stuff on their website. So I can write that in, I send the link. And also they've like really helped to facilitate like people from indigenous communities or people on the front line to like come to Europe to these conferences, because it can be actually quite harmful to bring people to Europe, and a lot of people like romanticize indigenous people or frontline activists, and are like almost like treat them like celebrities, or like they're just like people of the forest, and it can actually be kind of like awful. So you really need people who know what they're doing, and London Mining Network is an example of that, as well as people like Amnesty International. And it's not, we all are born in this system and have like our biases unconsciously, so it's all a learning process. But yeah, they're a really good example of like people to like they have like lots of paid staff, so lots of research is available basically.
Hope that helps, Sophie. That's great, Miranda. Just want to say, while others are thinking, I want to comment there, is what are the solutions? What are the alternatives? I mean, like Miranda said, and we all use these phones, we use these laptops, and if you see all the images and the video of, children mining in these places, it's horrendous conditions. But just with the just transition with oil workers, they wanted to transition away from oil. There's a whole film about it. How do we just transition from oil to, they wanted to go into renewable energy, and there was supposed to be all these grants in the government, and then they cut them, and then these guys are saying we're still working on a North Sea oil rig, but we wanted to be working in windmills and renewable energy. How do we transition? There's a group called Fairphone that make a a more fair trade phone that doesn't use as extractive situations going on. How do we find these products that are fairer, fair trade t-shirts to fair trade phones to, and so much is run by this stuff now. So what are the alternatives? Where's the other free energy and the other alternatives we can put in, or whatever it is? I don't know if Ken wanted to say something on that, because I'm really interested. I'm really glad you came, Ken, and what you said earlier on. As someone who used to work in mining, it is a job that many people have done. People have been creating energy out of digging things out of the earth for a long time. But what can we do? How can we transition? Have you heard about any alternatives? Any perspectives? I don't want to put you on the spot. Ken, if you want to say something, say something. Or anyone else who wants to share anything, comment, feedback, over.
Yeah, I'm happy to say a few words there from what I know, but it was a little while since I retired. Can you see me? Because my video seems to be playing up at the moment.
We can see a picture of your face with solar
Oh, okay.
behind it, which is
right,
great.
that's fine.
But I mean, we'd like to see you.
So, yeah, so my memory of working for mining companies, I worked for Anglo American, for example, in Africa. As a young man, I was kind of thinking, I could see the destruction and all the rest of it, but I thought, well, somebody must be keeping an eye on this and making sure it's not getting out of hand. And that's actually really stupid of me, because, they weren't. These people were just looking at the bottom line. So, for example, the gold mining in Ghana, downstream of the refinery, there was just a long line of dead trees. And that's because to extract the gold, they use substances like cyanide and mercury and all sorts of toxic, horrible stuff. And I could see this line of dead trees, and I thought, well, okay, there's a lot of trees around here. That's just one line. That's probably okay. But of course, it's not, is it? Because it just, that's just one mine and the destruction it causes, and it's just one sign of the pollution that's caused is just the trees. I have no idea what was going into the water course and everything. I was there to go underground and do the mining. I wasn't looking at anything else. So, the people who work on these mines, I would say we mustn't demonize them, because most of them will just be doing a job and they won't be fully aware of what's happening on the bigger picture, because they don't see that. They just see their job that's in front of them. But anything we can do to have a go at the companies, particularly on the stock exchange and things like that, I'm right behind Miranda and what she's doing and what the other organizations are doing. So yeah, that's just my 2 bit from here.
Powerful, Ken. It's powerful. How can we raise awareness and so many people are in these jobs because you've got to feed your family, pay the rent, stay alive. And like Miranda said, we've got less time and energy recently for activism because of the pressures of the cost of living and the rest. How can we reach out to these people and raise awareness and support people in these countries,
Mm. I think I just to jump in quickly. Yeah, it's like thank you, Ken, for saying that. It's like it's not the individual workers. Like yes, everybody has a responsibility and everyone can like leave jobs if they want to. That is also important. People do have agency. However, a lot of people working in these mines come from the like local area that the mining is happening in, and it's a job that sometimes pays well. And yeah, I think what I am seeing from like people on the ground who like have gone through like unimaginable suffering, their resilience is just so strong, and they really do believe that things are going to change. And I think so an important part is listening to them in any way we can, um, and amplifying their voices, and yeah, really a big part is damaging Glencore's like capacity to exist invisibly, if that makes sense. Like you guys all know about them and you can now research about them and tell someone else about them. And the more people in this country, unfortunately, this is where a lot of the power lies in making Glencore take responsibility. And actually having people from communities going to their AGM has really worked because the shareholders are all there. And it's pretty embarrassing when you've got someone standing up saying like they've lived through absolute hell because of Glencore. And it has actually made shareholders say they're going to take out money if things don't change, and that has been really impactful, especially around coal, because a lot of the shareholders are like, why are you still investing massively in coal, why are you not stopping this? So there are wins amongst all of these things, and there are currently like potentially really powerful legal cases happening against Glencore, like in the early stages, but that's coming
Oh,
along, and I do believe I can see my Wi-Fi is going.
yeah, keep your camera off. It's probably better.
Yeah, basically, I do believe things are, we have to keep hope, and I really can see that by people who are right on the front line of it. They're never giving up hope, and the resistance is strong. So yeah, just like we got to keep going, and this like applies to all of it. If you've got your own passion, just keep going for it, because we will keep going for Glencore, you keep going for your things, and it's all gonna unite. I mean, on the specifics, in terms of like big tech, basically we just need to stop mining so much stuff. We don't need new cobalt all the time. We can recycle phones, we can get secondhand. And also something I didn't really touch on, but quickly just to say, is a lot of these minerals are also being used for the military. So it's not just about phones. A lot of it is for AI and tanks and surveillance and helicopters and all this stuff. So that's also a big part, is we don't need to be spending 1.9 trillion every year globally on the military. Like we can we can stop. This doesn't have to be the only way. There are alternatives. So I really do believe like all activism is working together to change the norm, and that's what we need to do. So slowly we are doing it. I believe.
There's a lot of things that you have to realize that anyone else who wants a final comment and things as well. But I just want to say you have to realize that over time activism does work. I remember early on the kind of pushing anti-coal networks, and now there is a downturn, and the amount of coal happening is decreasing. You have incredible. When I started activism, we had leaflets that were given out. Now you have a phone, even start to get the Fairphone ones, and get a second-hand one, and start recycling and reusing and sharing more. But that phone links you to the entire world. You can speak to Aboriginal groups, you can speak to groups in South America, you can speak to groups all around your country, you can make text lists and and just doing this webinar here, that's gone out. Glencore's website's gone out on 1,000 emails and a load of WhatsApp and Signal and Telegram groups and Facebook, and even groups and people who don't even come to this webinar will check that out, click on the web link, or watch this video afterwards. Hopefully we'll get it up tonight or tomorrow as soon as possible, and network it out, folks. If it moved you tonight, think about those 8-year-olds who are dragging up massive bags full of coltan out in the middle of a deep mine, and let's try and do something and work on the solutions. But Okay, folks. Yeah, emotional ones. Um, uh, I think, so we're coming up to about our hour. It's really powerful to hear from James there in Congo and from different people. Gigi stopped mines in France. Was there something in France you were saying? Do you want to just quickly say that, and then I'm going to come over to Miranda for final comments, and we'll stop the recording, and then people can just stay around and chat if they want. But there was one or two other kind of campaigns that just Gigi stop mines in France. Is there a mining France thing? And also, there's Congo is a French-speaking country, isn't it? I think so. Do you want to say a little something, anything there? Over.
Yes, we can speak about the mobilization in France, and just a little. We have a lot of group in different place because a lot of mining is going to open. Actually, we don't have Glencore project in France, but we try to have some link with the movement against Rio Tinto, American mining, etc. So I think it could be very nice to have some collaboration with Stop Glencore and other one. Actually, I go in Brussels to speak about the subject. We prepare some event in France, and we try to have more struggle in different place. So it's very long and it's difficult in the activism movement to go in this subject for the moment. But we are some people trying to do that. So a day maybe we will be thousand and thousand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And please put a web link into any of those campaigns or groups. Just remind me, and years ago, there was a big campaign against Rio Tinto Zinc. And again, doing a lot to Indigenous groups all around South America and around. Direct action does get results. There was one last one before I come over to Miranda for the final comments. There was a Reclaim the Power action on an open cast mine, Fossey Fran, I think it was called. Everyone wore red and did a big like 350, 400 people action. Everyone dressed in these red boiler suits and went in and closed the mine down for a day and did a big snake and occupied some of the diggers. And you see also with the what's the one big one in Germany. Oh God, what's the German one called? I get slipping my brain from it. Someone help me out. It's a massive mine, open cast mine in Germany. Ender Glenda. They have a big climate camp inspired by the climate camps over here. And again, a few thousand people all dressed in white go and steam in and close it down for a day. So you could do everything from cutting down on buying so many things, sharing more things, go for a fair phone, don't rebuy your phone ever, less often, and share things, and raise awareness, link up with people in these countries and see how your climate emergency and your group or your individual activist can link with another individual activist. And if they get in trouble, get on the blower to the media and use your privilege over here to raise awareness and help and support groups. Over back to Miranda just for final parting comments. Thank you so much for coming and thank you for being a enthusiastic, younger, as I see it, activist for the next generation. You're lot quite inspired me at the festivals. How the energy you got and keep going, keep doing it and keep raising awareness and any help we can give. We'd love you to come to the Resistance exhibition, which we're doing in the Docklands on October 25th. 40 years of different protest photo and video exhibitions, some sculptures exhibition. Come along and help us before, get in contact. Or it'd be great to see a Resist Glencore stall. Over to you, Miranda, for final comments. Anything you want to share, any way we can help you, get in touch with Resist Glencore and help them out, folks. They're doing great work to help many people. Over to you, Miranda, final comment.
Yeah, just wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity and thanks for coming, guys. It's really nice to see lots of people and to talk about this with you. We mostly operate on Instagram, which is resist.glencore. We also have a website where we try to post up-to-date things. But yeah, just big shout out to Phoenix for setting this up, and your exhibition of resistance is so inspiring, and it's so the energy you bring is amazing. So thank you for creating the space for all of us to be here. And yeah, just great to meet you all. I hope you have a nice Wednesday evening.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm just going to post the beginning bit if I can of if it'll fit into the Resistance exhibition, if it'll fit in the chat. Copy that, folks. Let's see if it fits in. Yep, it does. That's where it is, and you can find out more on the Facebook or the Eventbrite. Please network it, share it. There's a bigger section to that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for a wonderful Wednesday webinar supporting groups and people all around the world take direct action every day, share some leaflets, and let's talk about solutions in the world we want to see. Thanks very much. I'll stop the recording there and see. Oh, next week we have the filmmaker who has made a film. He traveled all through southern Europe, and it's about fires and fascism, and he's found a link between the wildfires and extreme right groups and things that they're doing. So please check that out next Wednesday, fires and fascism, and join the WhatsApp chat. All right, thank you very much. I'll stop that there.
Thank you.